Happy holidays, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Cowboys Overtime here on StarTelegram.com, brought to you by Window Nation. I am Mac Engel, Fort Worth Star Telegram columnist. He is Mr. Clarence E. Hill Jr., University of Texas lover, and certainly a man who celebrated on Sunday morning at around 11:30 in the morning. We will get into that later. Clarence, before we talk, what's up with the sweater?
What's wrong with the sweater?
No, what is it? I can only see it says Hill and then what?
It's a Hill family Christmas sweater that I had from last year.
Very nice.
Hill family Christmas.
Okay.
My sister's into wearing these clothes for Christmas. You know, everybody's into pajamas on Christmas. I don't know if that's a cultural thing, but
I think that's a
pajamas on Christmas Day. And so she has us with pajama bottoms and Christmas sweaters. We are on Christmas Day. And so this was Hill 2021, actually 2 years ago.
Okay. That's
Christmas
very nice.
Pajama sweater. We had a big fight over this because I don't really wear red. She had me in red pajamas, and I don't wear red because it's Sooners colors and because it's Kappa colors, and I've never worn red in my life. And we had a big fight over the red. You know, I only wear purple and orange.
So you won?
Huh?
Did you win? It sounds like you won.
She's a woman, okay? Do you ever win against women?
No, it's more like a tie. You either win or you tie.
We fought though. I fought.
That's good.
We're never doing it again. I said, we're never.
That's a win.
It's
an
never.
Eventual win.
It's never happened. Candy, don't do this. Candy, don't do this Kappa Alpha Psi stuff in my face. Okay, this is a mega sci-fi podcast.
Clarence gonna be flashing them hooks here in a minute.
All
right, Clarence. We got a big game on Sunday night. This is actually a huge game, and I think everybody's going to be looking forward to this. Dallas Cowboys will host the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday Night Football on NBC, as the Cowboys, didn't think we were going to be saying this a few weeks ago, will be going for first place in the NFC East. Cowboys are 9-3 after a big win over Seattle. A win that was a little bit closer than we thought it was going to be, but a nice win over a decent Seahawks team on Thursday. Cowboys improved to 6-0 at home. Now they're going against the Eagles, actually coming off of a loss. They also got blown out by the San Francisco 49ers, which should also win the NFC West and the NFC East by virtue of destroying both the Cowboys and the Eagles this season. Cowboys are 3.5-point favorites. Clarence, we'll get into the prediction time later. Did a month ago, would you have said that you would have seen this one coming, that the Cowboys, when they played the Eagles here on the first Sunday night in December, they'd be going for first place? I didn't see first place on the line coming.
I mean, you wrote them off after San Francisco. I mean, it's just
I did not. That's ridiculous. No, I did not. First of all, you didn't read what I write. Let's just start there.
You wrote them off. So secondly, of course I saw this coming. Did you see the schedule after Philadelphia? And really, the Cowboys the Eagles are fortunate that it's not even worse than what it was, because what we saw was the Eagles playing at Kansas City, Buffalo, and San Francisco, and I saw maybe 2 losses. Luckily, the Eagles only had 1 loss, and of course, you think to a drop pass in Kansas City and a missed route in Buffalo, we might be talking about Cowboys fighting for sole possession of first place. But you look at the team the Cowboys were playing. Yes, with the way the Cowboys were playing well, they played well in Philadelphia. There was no reason to believe that they weren't going to beat Carolina and Seattle and Washington and those teams that in the Giants that came after the Eagles, that they would come unscathed and come into this game looking for first place. I mean, so this is what the Cowboys had hoped. This is what they wanted, and they kind of got their wish.
You getting your bookie calling you now?
Man,
I'm a plumber.
First of all, I'm just glad you're not freezing up. Okay, so stop it.
Well, I'm for those of people who watch this, they may not recognize this background. I am actually in Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm at my parents' house. Now, they have lived in the same house where I grew up. So they've been in this house for 46 years. 46 years. So the Wi-Fi thing could be, there's like various spots in this house that it works and it looks like it's stable. So fingers crossed. Clarence, I do want to hit on the Cowboys game last Thursday. It seems like it was a month ago when they beat the Seahawks. That's the first team that they've beaten that has a winning record and feels like.
Well, they no longer have a winning record. We want to move goalposts.
Okay. No, I'm not that guy.
They no longer have a winning record.
Seattle, when they played Seattle, Seattle was 6-5, and they were decent.
But you know the Jets were 1-0 when the Cowboys played the Jets.
Oh, come on. Okay, you're right. Was Aaron Rodgers going to play this week?
Aaron Rodgers didn't play that week. He didn't play when they beat the Jets.
Dr. Aaron Rodgers. I can't keep this all straight. But Clarence, the way they won that game, I mean, it was impressive in some regards, but it was discouraging in other aspects too, because DK Metcalf, now that's a top receiver, lit them up. And he destroyed Deron Bland until they made the switch to Stephon Gilmore. Then it changed a little bit. Deron Bland still got his interception. I can't believe that streak is keep going. But was the way they won that game, what was the part that you took away with that you thought, well, that's pretty encouraging? And what was the angle that you saw? I was like, it makes me a little nervous as they get ready to play really good teams.
It's twofold, because the problem with the Cowboys is we always judge them on style points. First of all, you're blowing everybody out, so we don't know what you want. Now you have a close game and you show some character. You have some adversity early, show some character. You get the stops in the game, and we don't want to give them credit for that because they didn't have the style points that we've seen in other games, even though this was their first game against a team with a winning record. And so you have all of that. Certainly they're concerned about the defense, and we'll talk about that. But you got to give them credit for style points. Not style points, but showing character and being able to battle back. Certainly, it's nice to have when Deron Bland is having a bad game, not to have Stephon Gilmore in your back pocket. Let's just switch Stephon Gilmore over there and shut that stuff down. And which they did. And at the end of the game, when the Cowboys needed the defense to show up, they got 3 straight 4th down stops in the fourth quarter. So, and Micah Parsons showed up like nobody's business when it mattered most. So you have those things. This is the NFL. The Eagles and the 49ers were not downgraded when they didn't blow teams out. Okay. They got credit for winning those games. But when the Cowboys don't blow teams out, we're like, well, it's a concern because, they struggled and they gave up too many points against the Seattle team. That's really a playoff contender that has a receiving core as good as any in the NFL. When you talk about DK Metcalf and some of those guys they have, the shame of it is, it's funny because I was talking before the game to the Seattle Riders, like, DK Metcalf has not lived up to expectations because his size, speed, profile, he should be doing A.J. Brown things every week. He's big, he's fast, and he doesn't look like A.J. Brown does every week with the Eagles. That's who A.J. Brown, that's who DK Metcalf should be. Of course, sure enough, he comes against the Cowboys, has a monster game, and looks like he should look. I mean, that's a beast. Oh. That dude, ran against Olympic track guys, ran a 10.3 or whatever else. The guy can read big, fast. Nobody's covering him.
No, the only question I had is why they didn't make the switch to Gilmore earlier in the game that catch that he made over the middle where he just vice gripped it out of midair and then runs 22 miles an hour literally into the end zone. Like, who's covering that?
First of all, the other team gets paid too, and second, it was a perfect ball.
No, it was all of it was wonderfully.
It was a perfect ball. Gilmore couldn't have played it, but Gilmore's not as fast as Bland.
No, he's not. But Donovan Wilson took a bad angle. But
he did take a bad angle. But how do you take a good angle against a guy that runs 10 flat?
My point. It's like the Bo Jackson run. You can take good angles against certain guys, and there's certain guys like, sorry, man, God made me different, and you're not me. And I look at DK Metcalf, especially on that play. There's nobody who could cover that. Dion in his prime.
It was a perfect pass.
In his prime. It was really fun to watch. And there were some other things. But I think you're right. I think you've got to give Dallas credit. You're 6-0 at home. And when you play a pretty good team, how you win is how you win. And they look pretty good. Jake Ferguson had a great game. It looks like he's developing into a little bit more of a weapon and an asset and a possibility, a threat for them offensively that they need that we really weren't sure they had. Now, I don't know. We're not looking at anybody. I don't think we're looking at Jake Ferguson as anybody like Jason Witten type, but at least that's the first time I think we've seen consistently from that tight end spot that had produced not very much, something. And that was pretty encouraging. CeeDee Lamb obviously looks pretty good. Brandon Cooks, they figured out a way to get him involved. Michael Gallup is a different story. He's MIA, but that's that. So now I do think where we are in December, because we kind of hinted at it, we are into the time of the year where you can really start talking about MVP candidates. I don't have an MVP vote. I don't know if you have an MVP vote.
I don't.
But Dak Prescott right now, He's leading the NFL MVP regular season award odds make, according to the odds makers, anyways. He's the leader. Dak would be first. These are all gambling terms, so I'll just bear with me. Dak is first at plus 300. Brock Purdy is second at plus 350, along with Jalen Hurts, quarterback that the Cowboys will see on Sunday night against in Philadelphia. Patrick Mahomes is plus 700, and Tua in Miami is plus 750. Now, this is all going to change. We got 4 or 5 games left. This is going to change. But if you had a vote right now, is Dak Prescott the MVP?
I mean, I think that no quarterback certainly is playing better than we left out Tyreek Hill, and he's having a monster season in Miami. But it's hard for receivers to win the award.
It is,
because the quarterback, and he's having a great season. He should be the outstanding offensive player. But as far as what matters most and what the quarterbacks do, you can't pick a receiver over a quarterback. And just looking the way Dak is playing, especially the last 7 weeks, nobody's playing better. He's the number 1 ranked quarterback in the NFL by Pro Football Focus. No one's throwing more touchdown passes. No one's had fewer interceptions over the last 7 weeks. I mean, everything that you thought about Dak, people made up about Dak last year, that's not him this year. He's having a great year. And the dirty little secret, as we talk about the defense and the way the defense played, the reason the Cowboys have a chance to win is not because we got a championship defense, we're going to run the ball. It's because Dak Prescott's playing out of his mind. And his offense, again, is number 1 ranked offensive scoring offense in the NFL.
Yeah, wasn't Mike McCarthy not worried about those?
Yeah, no. I'm not trying to be number 1 offense. I want to pick my defense, and run the ball and protect my defense.
All right, we got more to talk about here on Cowboys Overtime, but first we're going to hear from our good friends at Window Nation.
Window Nation, the star of window replacement and proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys, can help you fill the house this season with savings. Buy 2 windows, get 2 free, and make no interest payments for 60 months, 5 full years. Fill your house for a customized authentic Dallas Cowboys jersey while supplies last. You could even help fill the Cowboys house and win tickets to a game. Visit windownation.com/Cowboys now for details. Call 866-95-NATION. Window Nation, proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, no, Clarence is gone. Oh, no, Clarence is back. Would you like to talk about freezing up?
I didn't freeze up. I'm hyper. I have a short attention span. So during the commercial, I started going to Twitter to see what was going on. And accidentally, I cannot just sit still. I'm sorry. It's been a childhood trait. I can't sit still. And so I was dealing with my computer and accidentally X'd out of the StreamYard.
That's good. All right. Well, thank you very much. At least you're honest about it.
Yeah, I just can't sit still.
You mentioned it here a second ago. Thank you very much, Wyndham. You mentioned it here a second ago. Cowboys on Sunday night, they got a defense that needs to show up against Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I want you to bear with me here. I'm going to read off some stats. Cowboys rank 3rd in the NFL in yards allowed. They rank 4th in points per game. This is the defense. Ranked 4th in the points per game. 18.3. I was surprised on that one. 12th versus the run, allowing 106 yards per game. That one really surprised me. I thought that would have been under 100. And then they are 5th versus the pass. We saw in that game against Philadelphia 4 or 5 weeks ago, whatever it was, Jalen Hurts and the offense moved the ball on that team until the 4th quarter. And then obviously play calling changes, it changes everything. But, Jalen Hurts and that offense moved the ball against Dallas. We've seen Dallas really come along and weather some pretty significant losses. I'm thinking Leighton Vander Esch. In my mind, because Micah Parsons is – I know he's not going to win the Defensive Player of the Year award. He should be a finalist, but he's probably not going to win it. The guy to me that continues to play, and he's not getting the credit, is Tank Lawrence. Tank Lawrence continues to bring it. And you've got to give that guy a ton of credit because there were a lot of questions and concerns about him when the Cowboys gave him money. But the next thing he did was went out and had back surgery. And he's been worth it. Restructured his deal, and he's been worth it. Whatever you want to say about Cowboys giving guys money, Terrence Steele, Michael Gallup, whomever else in their history, this guy's done it. And when I look at the Cowboys defense, there's a lot of guys you can give credit for. Deron Bland because of the interception numbers, Michael Parsons. Tank Lawrence has got to get at least some love. So help me out here.
Listen. I'm a big Tank Lawrence fan. I'm glad you brought that up because he was just announced that the Cowboys Walter Payton nominee for this year. Tank Lawrence has come a long way on and off the field as a person, as a player. So kudos to him and hats to him for being. He does a lot of the community. He's been doing a lot of the community going back to the pandemic, and he started doing some different things in the community, and it's really shown up. I'm glad it's getting recognition. But on the field, I mean, Tank Lawrence, this is the first year, and we talked about it before, and everybody's healthy and off. No, this is the first year Tank Lawrence has had a clean off season where he's not coming off surgery, he's not rehabbing it. He had a full off season to work out. He cut his hair, cut the locks off, cut his hair, and he came to the season healthy as he's been in a long time. And you notice during the season, there's no injuries. He's missed no games. He showed up. And when Tank Lawrence is out there showing up, he makes plays. I asked Dan Quinn about him yesterday, and Dan Quinn just talked about how he just has a knack for making the play at the right time. Go back to the Seattle game, fourth quarter, fourth down. It's Tank Lawrence who drops the running back for a loss and gets them out the field. And you go time and time, go back to last year in that Houston game when the Cowboys were scuffling against Houston. And it was Tank Lawrence who dove in and made the play on fourth down. And he has done that time and time again. And he's been a soldier for the Cowboys. And one thing I talk about, when you look at this defense and why, and it's funny because you list off the numbers, but this defense struggling, but they're the top 5, the top 3, numbers-wise, they're one of the top defenses in the league. They don't always show that down in and down out all the time. But you look at this defense, you look at the 49ers defense, you look at Eagles defense, they got all these number 1 picks, these first-round picks, these blue players, as Jerry used to say, Pro Bowl-type players. You look what the 49ers have up front. The Cowboys have 2 players that are considered among the best in the league. That's Tank Lawrence and that's Michael Parsons in the front 7.
The rest are guys.
Yeah, I'm serious. They got 2 guys.
Right. Yeah. Peyton Vander Esch was a first-round pick. But,
but he was not playing at that level. Actually, if the dirty truth to be told, the defense is actually playing better than linebackers without Leighton Vander Esch than they were with him. But they have 2 players who are special, and that's Tank Lawrence and there's,
front 7, right?
Yeah, front 7. Yeah, Michael Parsons. And so that makes a difference. And so you need Tank to be healthy. You need to be out there. And I think, again, timely plays, Tank makes them.
I didn't bring this up when we were talking about the Seattle game, but since we're talking about the defense, it fits. On the last play the Seahawks ran, it's 4th and 5, whatever, and they're still in the game, and they deliberately design and run a play where they don't block Micah Parsons. It wasn't a mistake. Pete Carroll, Seattle's head coach, owned it after the game. We left him unblocked by design. Yeah. Obviously, it's done to swing the other way, but I'm sitting there and I'm like, I get the design. I do. I get the design. It's like a lot of these things. You can understand the thinking of it. You're like, okay, I kind of get that logic, but I can't ever think of a situation where someone deliberately would design a play like that when the guy who's unblocked is a player like that. That's like leaving Lawrence Taylor unblocked or J.J. Watt or name any great defensive player in the history of the NFL. You have to. I can't ever recall seeing a play design, and Pete Carroll's no dummy. Play design where you deliberately look at a guy and say, we're not even going to account for you.
The funny thing about that game is that at the end of the day, the Cowboys had no sacks. Michael Parsons had no sacks in that game. But Michael Parsons had like 100 hurries.
Oh, yeah.
100 quarterback hits.
He affected
the game. And that's what people get so caught up in sacks, like with Tank Lawrence last couple of years. He doesn't have any sacks. Well, he's affecting the game. Yeah. And Michael Parsons affected the game. And what you got to understand is the play call ideally makes sense because you're trying to sucker him in. You got everybody going the other way, and you're leaking the back out, and you're going to throw the ball to him. And it may have been, but 2 things were in play there. Number 1, Tank Lawrence had covered the back. Okay. Yep. And number 2 is it's just like the DK Metcalf thing. You can have a play design, but you cannot prepare for someone that runs 10 flat. And you cannot prepare for a linebacker that runs 4-3. And so Michael Parsons runs 4-3. Yeah, so he runs 4-3.
The design makes perfect sense.
The suddenness for him to get there, you can't prepare, but that works against a lot of players.
That's the point. And I couldn't. I was like, why wouldn't you account for? What he is.
Because all you want to do is you want to get him sucked in. You want to loft it over him. But he just gets there. But the back wasn't there because Tank had got the back, and Micah is too sudden.
All right, we're going to move on to a different level of football now. Clarence was celebrating on Sunday. I could hear him screaming and yelling when the crooks and the cartel that run college football made sure that the University of Texas is in the college football playoff for the first time. For the second
time out. We love you, Candy. You know, we need a player that's playing in the little graphic.
Oh, yeah. I didn't want to say anything.
That's okay.
It's all right. Okay. It's all good. So Texas, for the second consecutive year, Texas will have a playoff team. Last year, TCU got in, won the Fiesta Bowl, and now Texas will get in, and they will play Washington in the Sugar Bowl in the second. No, that would be the first semifinal.
No, it's the second one. Actually, it's a late one.
It's a late one. Oh, okay. It's a late
one in New Orleans. It's going to be crazy.
It's going to be a night. Texas is a 4-point favorite. Now, they lost to Washington last year in the bowl game. I can't remember. The Alamo Bowl. Same quarterback, by the way, but obviously dramatically different teams and circumstances. The other playoff game will consist of undefeated Michigan versus Alabama, 1 versus 4. Alabama. Clarence, I could ramble and rant about this all day. Texas deserved it. I don't have any problem with Texas getting in. I'm happy for Texas. I'm happy for Steve Sarkisian and you and all my friends who are Texas fans. I am. It's neat.
How about Brett? Did you see Brett? Were you sucking on onions like Brett? You know, I don't think you saw Brett. You know, doing this.
No.
Yormark, your buddy. You know, Brett Yormark, your buddy.
I don't. Here's my issue with that. There's a strata of people in major college athletics. And Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner, would certainly fit into that strata. They don't care.
He cares. He cares.
No, he's playing a part because they're making so much money.
He looked like this Southwest Airlines commercial. You want to get away? And he was trying to hand that trophy. And they wouldn't let him speak. He was just sucking onions and it was fun. Anyway, go.
So Texas gets in, and this leads to this whole different discussion. We'll do it for a later day, which is the situation the Big 12 is going to find itself in come, August 1st when the new league starts, when Texas and Oklahoma are out, and then the Pac-12
will be treated like the ACC.
I think you're probably right, Clarence. This should be a pretty good game. Michael Penix, the quarterback at Washington, has been invited as a Heisman Trophy finalist. To me, he's the most exciting quarterback. With all due respect to the guy at both Oregon and LSU, to me, Michael Penix is the guy. I love Michael Penix. He's a great player. He's been a hell of a lot of fun to watch when he was in Indiana and now at Washington. -4 should be a good game. Hopefully, most of these playoff games have been blowouts. Last year was phenomenal. Last year was great. That was the greatest day of college football ever. TCU Michigan was an insanely great game. Ohio State Georgia, great game. What do you think about it? I mean, I don't know if you can be impartial. You think Texas is going to beat Washington to get into the championship game?
Texas, Alabama in the championship game, for sure. I think Texas can beat
Washington.
For sure. Sure they can beat Washington. Now, I know I respect Michael Penix. I've been watching Michael Penix since he was at Indiana. One of my close friends, Don Nimmons, is an IU grad. He's been talking about Michael Penix. He's certainly been talking about him since he made the transfer. And so we've been following him. It's a great story. A good quarterback. I do disagree that Jada Daniels is the best player in college football. He should win the Heisman. He's just been that special at LSU.
Marvin Harrison was the best player in college football, by the way.
Okay, well,
he was.
Well,
go ahead. If we're doing the eyeball test, because that's what college football is.
That's fine. I'm not going to argue about Harrison, but certainly Jada Daniels, I think, is the most outstanding quarterback. How about that? In college football this year with his play. But yeah, Penix is good, great receiving core, and he's a gamer. He makes plays. Certainly, I watched them play Texas in the Alamo Bowl last year. Of course, that was the Alamo Bowl without a couple of the Texas top running backs who sat out because they were going to the pros. But it was a 28-21 game. And so it was a close game. I think this Texas team is different. They're certainly better, and their defense is better. The thing I worry about with Washington, their pass defense is awful, and so, with Texas receivers and the way Texas quarterback is playing, that's going to be a challenge. I look for a shootout in the Sugar Bowl night games, January 1st. the worst part about it is I can't go.
Why not?
Because I cover the Cowboys. They have a game
I don't know the
that
schedule.
week. They have a game
I'm at the
that
time
week.
of the year where the calendar means nothing. I have no idea.
They have a game that week. They play Detroit on that Saturday. They finish the season with Washington on that Sunday. You got most likely have a press conference on January 1st because it's a game week. I mean, it's just I can't go. I can't.
Okay,
but I'm going to the championship game. Somehow to get to Houston, I'm going to the championship game.
Okay,
tell Dave. Forget the Cowboys. Playoff week, I will be in Houston. You're going to cover them. Are you not going to Houston? Are you not covering anything if Texas gets there? I mean, why are we not doing
I will. I mean, I'm certainly game. I'll go watch Texas win or Texas lose or whatever. I'm game to do anything. I mean, I fell into covering the Rangers, winning the World Series. Why not Texas win the championship?
Biggest story in Texas right now.
Here's what I want. I know, Cal, we talked forever. I have a real bone to pick with College Football Playoff Committee.
Yes.
I think what they did to Florida State was an utter injustice. We've seen, it's not really a playoff. This is an invitational, and it's an eyeball test. It's run by a bunch of guys, which is why I made that comment about Brett Yormark. These are guys making 6 and 7 figures who gather at a resort and play a fantasy football draft with college football teams. And I mean, if they're wrong or whatever, there's no consequence to any of it. So Florida State goes undefeated in a Power 5 conference, and they don't get in. The results now, this won't happen again because the college football playoff field will be expanded next year to 12 teams.
Or the 13th team will be mad.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're not going to care as much as about a 9-3 team as we are about a team that just went 12-0 in the
No,
ACC.
we're not. And
to me, this is Georgia has a right to be mad. I mean, if I'm to me, the one team that doesn't belong here is Alabama. And they put them in because they beat Georgia. Now, we disregard the fact that Alabama needed a miracle in a 3-man rush by Auburn at the end of the Alabama-Auburn game. Not a very, very good Auburn team, an Auburn team that lost to New Mexico State, by the way. That's the only reason they're here. And I'm not a Florida State fan. I have no dog in Florida State. I have no money who went there, nothing like that. But when it comes to this thing, we've seen injustices and debates and all this other stuff. This one takes the cake. And if I'm Florida State, if I'm those players, I'm like, you know what? I got a cold. I don't think I'm going to play. And we're seeing it now with all these second-tier bowl games. Guys are out. Guys are transferring. They're gone. They're not going to play. These things are going to become glorified scrimmages, spring ball scrimmages. These second-tier bowl games. The Ohio State quarterback's transferring. He's not even going to play in the Cotton Bowl against Missouri, and on and on and on.
I think they told him to leave.
Whatever, however you want to.
No, I agree.
We're still charging $350.
Let me get back to Florida State. First of all, I always thought that the going to 4 was always wrong. They should have went to 12. It's ridiculous.
You're talking about right away?
Yes. I mean, it was stupid. I mean, what are we doing going to 4? I mean, that was never played calling the playoffs. It was never a playoff. It was always a pick. Just like when it was 2. I mean, it should have always been 12. I mean, it should have always been expanded. If you're gonna do the playoffs, do the playoffs. It was always wrong. It always felt wrong, and we just never got a situation like we have this year, where you're really picking the network and you're picking a team, and you'd rather piss off the ACC than the SEC. I mean, let's be honest about this. You're not gonna. What is the ACC gonna do? What is Florida State gonna do? You don't want to.
Ultimately,
you don't want us to upset SEC. You have to have an SEC team there.
None of them are going to do anything.
So even if Georgia would have won, they'd have still left Florida State off for Texas.
Well, I don't. When you start getting splitting hairs, my contention was the same thing I said last year about TCU. TCU lost in overtime the Big 12 championship game to a good Kansas State team, and there was justifiably some concern that they were going to leave them out. But my issue is this: is like you went undefeated in a Power 5 league. I mean, what else are you supposed to do?
And you beat LSU. I mean, that wasn't like you beat a team from SEC. No, it's unfair. And it is an eyeball test. And if we were a betting man, and I know it's unfair on paper, if you're a betting man, you would not bet Florida State to win, though. And I think part of this is it's.
I guess hang on, time out. If it was Florida State against Michigan, I'm not a believer in Michigan. I'm just not.
That's fine, but the problem here is I think with all due respect to TCU, I mean, they don't want a championship game blowout. They do not want to see that again. And I think that they're on paper, yes, Florida State is undefeated, should be in, but they don't want a situation where you got your backup quarterback, you can't score, and you get your doors blown off. Because
I totally agree.
No one's picking Florida State over Alabama, Georgia.
No way. And you're not doing here's my issue with that. I get all that. Well, they've done that now for 10 years. Yeah, 10 years. They've done this 14 playoff. Most of them have been blowouts. But the vast majority of the playoff games and championship games have been blowouts. Now, not 65-7, but they've been blowouts.
Well,
they've all no. I looked it up. They've it's a nauseating, disproportionate amount of great games, and that's my big issue about college football.
Well, I mean, there's blowouts, and then there's that thing that happened last year with Georgia and TCU. That's a whole nother level of.
No, it was horrible. It was awful. I mean, it was awful for everybody involved.
Yeah,
it was awful if you bought a ticket to go to that game. Like if you were a Georgia fan, what a waste of time. There was nothing fun about it. It was boring. I mean, it was done by the middle of the second quarter. But if you look at consistently the playoff games, the Notre Dame games, Notre Dame's gotten crushed twice. Michigan State, crushed. Washington, crushed. LSU destroyed a good Clemson team. And it illustrates and underscores the bigger problem in college football, which is the gap. There's always, parity. There's quite a bit of parity between 3 and 30. You'll see 30 beat 3 occasionally. You ain't seen being 2 beat 1 very much. And the gap is so big. Alabama destroyed all these Big Ten teams getting in. The Big Ten is built on Urban Meyer's Ohio State teams. Well, Urban Meyer's been gone for years. Big Ten is 3-6 all time in the playoffs. And don't be surprised when Michigan gets in there and gets its ass kicked by Bama. Now, I'm rooting for Michigan.
You're rooting for Jim Harbaugh?
Here's why.
You're rooting for the cheaters. You're rooting for cheaters. You hate on Barry Bonds. You're rooting for the cheaters.
No, I'm not. I'm rooting for something different. That's a fair point. And everybody's stealing signs. All right, so you're picking.
No, everybody's been stealing signs. Everybody's been juicing. Everybody's been juicing too since the '60s.
You know what?
They've been taking Reddies and beanies, and they've been
Reddies
cheating.
and beanies are nothing.
Those
are all uppers. No, cocaine and an upper and coffee.
They're just illegal drugs. They help me get through double headers.
It's just not. They're not the same thing. All right, we've been talking. Give me predictions. Michigan versus Alabama. Forget it. We don't have to worry about that.
We'll do that next week. We'll do that. Pick the Cowboys.
Cowboys. You and I both were wrong last week. We had Cowboys covering against Seattle. They didn't cover. They win. However, so that brings you up to like three losses.
I'm ahead of you.
You are ahead by a game. Probably Dallas 3.5-point favorite against Philadelphia on Sunday night. Who you got?
Cowboys. Cowboys win at home. They're 14-0 at home. They're 5-0 against the Eagles at home. It's not.
So, both?
Cowboys, both. Cover.
Both. Okay, I agree with you. Cowboys on Sunday night against the Philadelphia Eagles. Sunday Night Football. Chris Collinsworth, Mike Tirico, and all the pretty people from NBC will be there. Clarence will be there. I'll be there. Hopefully you'll be there too for all of your Cowboys coverage needs. Check us out on StarTelegram.com. Clarence, good to see you. Candy, thank you very much. And celebrate a Hill 2021 Happy Family Christmas. Not in red. See you next week.